Two graduate students walk into a conference room at one of the biggest internet companies on Earth. They're holding a piece of technology that will change how humanity finds information. Forever. They're asking less than $1 million for it. The man across the table says no. 5 years later, that technology is worth $23 billion. How does someone say no to that? Here's the disturbing part. His reasoning wasn't stupid. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't even close. It was airtight. And that's exactly what makes this story worth understanding. Because if it can happen to a smart, experienced executive with all the data in the world in front of him, it can happen to anyone. It might already be happening to someone right now in a boardroom you've never heard of, making a decision that looks completely rational today and completely insane in 5 years. Let's set the scene properly. Picture this. You run a massive company. Millions of users a day. Your revenue comes from advertising, and your entire business model depends on one single metric: keeping people on your website as long as possible. The longer they stay, the more pages they view, the more ads they see, the more money flows in. That's not a side detail of your business. That is your business. Every decision your company makes, every product feature, every hire, every dollar of investment is built around maximizing the amount of time a stranger spends looking at your screen. Now, two college kids walk into your office and offer you a piece of software that does the exact opposite of everything you've built your company around. It takes whatever a user is searching for, and instead of showing them 10 pages of results designed to keep them clicking around your site, it gives them one precise answer and sends them away from your website in under half a second. Think about what that actually means for your business. The better their product works, the faster your users leave your page. Every improvement to their algorithm is, from your balance sheet's point of view, a small act of self-sabotage. You're not being asked to buy a good product. You're being asked to buy a machine that actively destroys the metric your entire company runs on. You're the CEO. You have data. You have a strategy team. You have years of experience in this exact market, watching it grow from nothing into a multi-billion-dollar industry. And every single number in front of you says the same thing. This isn't our business. In fact, it might actively hurt our business. So, what would you have done? Take a second, really think about it. Not with the hindsight you have now, knowing how the story ends. Think about it the way it looked in that room, in that year, with the information available at that moment. All right, here's what actually happened. The company was Excite, one of the largest web portals of the late 1990s, sitting right alongside Yahoo, Lycos, and AOL as one of the main gateways people used to access the internet. The two students were Larry Page and Sergey Brin, PhD candidates at Stanford. The technology was PageRank, the algorithm that would eventually become the foundation of Google. They didn't walk in asking for millions. They offered to sell the entire technology, license and all, for $1 million. When that didn't land, they dropped the price to $750,000. Excite's CEO, George Bell, turned them down. Not after months of deliberation. The meeting reportedly lasted only a matter of minutes. And here's what most retellings of this story get wrong. They tell it like a joke, like Bell was some clueless executive who couldn't see what was right in front of him. He wasn't. His decision was built on a business logic that basically the entire industry agreed with at the time. This wasn't a rookie mistake. It was a deliberate, calculated, board-approved decision made by a company that understood its own numbers extremely well. From where George Bell was sitting, spending $750,000 to speed up the one thing his company was paid to slow down, looked like a bad trade. Not a blind one, a calculated one, backed by every metric his team could point to. So, what happened next? Page and Brin took their algorithm, walked away, and kept working. A year later, they founded Google in a rented garage in Menlo Park, California, with $100,000 in seed funding from their first investor, Andy Bechtolsheim, a check he wrote before the company was even legally incorporated. 5 years after that, Google went public. IPO valuation, $23 billion. At the time, one of the largest technology IPOs in history. Today, Google's parent company, Alphabet, is worth more than $2 trillion. It's one of the most valuable companies that has ever existed on the planet. And Excite? In 2001, the company collapsed into bankruptcy during the dot-com crash, alongside dozens of other portals built on the same walled garden model. A domain that was valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars just 2 years earlier was eventually sold off for a small fraction of that. George Bell left the company before it fully unraveled. That's not a rounding error. That's one of the widest gaps between a price offered and a value realized in modern business history, a gap of roughly 2,666,000% if you want to put an exact number on it. Now here's where the story gets uncomfortable, because it would be easy to end it right there and let you walk away thinking, wow, what an idiot. But that's not the real lesson. Look at what everyone else in the industry was doing at the exact same time. Yahoo, the biggest portal of them all, turned down the chance to buy Google. Twice. Once in 1998, when the price would have been small. And again in 2002, years later, when Google was already generating serious advertising revenue, and Yahoo could have paid a price much closer to what the company was actually worth. Yahoo said no both times for almost exactly the same reasons Excite did. This wasn't one bad call by one bad executive having a bad week. This was an entire industry's blind spot. Every major portal in 1999 was optimizing for the same metric, time on site, and every single one of them missed the same shift happening right under their feet. They were all looking at the same data, using the same playbook, drawing the same conclusion, and they were all about to be proven wrong by the same company. So the real lesson here isn't, they should have bought it. Anyone can say that now with 20 years of hindsight sitting comfortably behind them. The real lesson is this. The business logic that feels airtight today might be sitting on top of a model of the world that simply won't exist in 3 years. And the most dangerous decisions in business are almost never the ones where you're uncertain, where you're nervously weighing pros and cons. They're the ones where you're completely, rationally, confidently certain that you're right, because certainty is exactly what stops you from checking again. And this pattern doesn't just show up once. It shows up again and again across business history, almost like a recurring glitch in how successful companies think. Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix outright for $50 million in the year 2000. They turned it down, laughing the offer out of the room because their entire revenue model was built on late fees and physical store traffic, not a mail-order subscription service that seemed at the time like a niche hobby for a small number of movie nerds. Kodak invented the world's first digital camera back in 1975. Their own engineer built it, patented it, and showed it to leadership. And Kodak buried the technology for decades because it threatened the film development business that was generating the vast majority of their profits at the time. In every one of these cases, Excite, Yahoo, Blockbuster, Kodak, the decision-makers weren't careless, and they weren't stupid. They were protecting a business model that had made them enormously rich for decades. The trap wasn't ignorance. The trap was success. Success that made the old model feel permanent, feel like the natural order of things, right up until the moment it wasn't. And that's really the question worth sitting with after a story like this. Not how could they have missed it, but what current certainty of mine might look exactly like this in 10 years. In the next story, a man who personally held the patent for a technology that would eventually destroy his own company from the inside out. And he's the one who signed off on releasing it into the world. He knew with almost total certainty exactly what it would cost him and his business.